Hi, welcome to Dream and Do. Why is it that you can be in the middle of a crowd? Everyone is laughing around you, messages pinging on your phone, and yet somehow it still feels like you are alone on an isolated island in the middle of a vast ocean. Odd, isn't it? You scroll through social media, post things, comment, react, and yet there is this hushed, hollow ache inside, a space that no notification, no smile, no presence appears capable of filling. For presence is not the same as connection. You can sit next to people, laugh with them, even talk to them, and still feel miles away. That intangible distance feels heavier than most might ever imagine. Maybe you've tried to break it. You've gone out when invited, joined conversations, even trusted others with small pieces of yourself. And for a moment, it feels like you're getting closer, until it suddenly collapses. The spark fades, the exchange feels hollow, and you're left withdrawing or worse, feeling quietly rejected. It is like there is a hidden wall between you and the rest of the world. Not a wall you wanted, not one you even realized you constructed, but one you continue to build. Brick by brick, a part of you locked away, and only you have the key. Carl Jung once stated that true love and genuine connection are conscious acts, instances wherein two hearts cross beyond masks, beyond personas. And yet most of us go about life hoping it will simply occur, hoping the right person will somehow come along and dismantle our walls. And when that doesn't occur, the blame game starts. You figure something is wrong with you. This is the paradox. You hunger for closeness, but are afraid of it equally. You yearn to be seen, yet automatically pull away when someone finally reaches too close. You've become an expert at hiding in plain sight, seeming available while secretly guarding the rough, unfinished edges of yourself. You yearn for intimacy, but package it in humor, control, silence. The truth, it is not company you are missing. It is the feeling of being truly sensed, truly heard. Perhaps life had to teach you self-sufficiency. Perhaps it had to teach you that vulnerability is dangerous. And so you made being alone normal, rationalizing that it is safer to rely on no one. But deep inside, behind the armor, there remains a place in you yearning for heat, for the kind of connection where you don't have to put on a show or fake it. The obstacle isn't your need to connect. It is the fear that protects it. Fear of judgment, fear of hurt, fear of revealing your flaws. That fear disguises itself as independence, as detachment, as humor. But it is still fear, and fear erects walls much more quickly than trust can ever construct bridges. Perhaps you've been secretly hoping someone will notice, see through the walls, and stay. But the truth is, connection doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing. From both people deciding to show up. In truth, that takes bravery, not to hide behind smooth veneers, but to allow your cracks to be seen. True connection isn't in light conversation or superficial smiles. It is when you allow someone in to enter your unprotected self. You can speak with 100 individuals, yet if no one ever touches the authentic you, the isolation persists. Perhaps you were taught that vulnerability is weakness. So each time someone got close, alarms went off, calling you to withdraw. You hovered close enough to be there, yet far enough away to be safe. But safety and peace are not the same thing. Peace only arrives when the walls come down, when you can be completely seen, without risk of being rejected. If you continue to find yourself stuck in the same cycle, connection, hope, then backing away, it is not by chance. It is a pattern. What you are experiencing isn't coincidence. It is a sign of something unfinished inside of you. The same defenses that once protected you now become the same walls that isolate you from what you desire most. No one knows your entire truth. No one ever gets to see the unspoken dreams, the private hurts you've been carrying around for years in silence. By guarding against rejection, you also cut yourself short from actual acceptance. Perhaps you have confused love with rescue, validation, proof that you are enough. But the reality is, the only lasting evidence is within, from your acceptance to meet yourself fully before demanding anyone else do it for you. Carl Jung taught us that the deepest human longing is to transcend separation without losing ourselves, to love with freedom, not with need. But unwittingly, you might have taken strength and turned it into armor, independence turned into a fortress. Initially, It does feel strong, but over time, the walls rise, and even those who love most can't find a way through. You may worry that revealing too much will drive others away. But the truth is the opposite. Only intimacy is born when you let yourself be seen. When you cover your truth, you also cover the entrance to real closeness. And here is the secret. Connection isn't a miracle that you just happen to stumble into. It is a choice. You'll never be completely ready to let your guard down. But you can choose to take baby steps anyway. Reveal one thing you've never revealed. Send the message without overthinking. Let someone see you when you are not put together, not flawless. Those moments will feel scary, but that is where trust starts. Real connection is not built on smooth, perfect conversations. It is created in the awkward places, in the humility to remain during disagreement, in the bravery to come back even when it is simpler to leave. Not everybody will meet you there, but the ones that do will love the authentic you a lot more than the image you presumed you must have worn. And when it does occur, when someone looks at you not for your position, but for your essence, you will know that belonging never had anything to do with fitting in. It had to do with showing up full and being welcomed that way. But to get to that, you have to first make friends with your own narrative, with the painful pages, with the concealed fragments you've attempted to conceal. You have to say to yourself, with no uncertainty, I am deserving of being noticed just as I am, aka present. You might be feeling the tug to transform and the seduction to remain secure within old patterns. But as Jung cautioned, our deepest fear is always freedom. For freedom requires responsibility. You will never get deep connection if you are showing up halfway, if you bite your truth back, if you flee when closeness begins to develop. Connection is conceived in the imperfect, messy moments, not in the perfect performance you've mastered. The transformation occurs the instant you understand that it is about presence, not perfection. That takes you to a place where you begin to speak more truthfully, listen more thoroughly, and discover that intimacy is constructed on small, genuine moments, not big, sweeping ones. And then comes the difficult part, learning to accept. For so long, you've had control over what you give, holding it safe, owing nothing. But when a person gives you genuine care, you can question it or brush it aside. Not everybody is going to cause harm. Some are able to hold your truth gently. Love, as Jung put it, is an act of conscious faith, the courage to believe, even in a world that we know is not perfect. Yes, you've been hurt, but if you continue living from the wound, you will continue repeating the same loneliness. The only way out is forward. Step by step, conversation by conversation, decision by decision. You start with honesty, with one person. You seek help without practice. You sit quietly with someone and let it be enough. And little by little, your heart recalls that it is safe to feel again. You are not an island cut off from the world. You are a human being, and humans are hardwired for connection. Nobody is going to show up with the right words or actions to fix you. Nobody can open the door you've locked. That is your decision to risk, even though there is fear and uncertainty, because you don't want to be stuck in the cage you constructed for protection. And when you do make that leap, the shifts start to happen. Not immediately, not ideally, but gradually, with force toward honesty, toward being accepted precisely as you are. You will fall. You will inadvertently share more than you meant to. Some will not react as you wish them to. That is not failure. That is life. That is evidence that you are learning to relate without sheltering in walls. Out there somewhere are individuals who share your feelings, quietly yearning for assurance that someone else gets it. Most of the time, all that takes is the bravery to create a tiny crack in the armor. And you'll find that on the other side, someone has been waiting for you as well. Carl Jung said that mature love has a different vibration than love that comes from need. It is not, I need you because I love you, but I love you because I need you. That little change makes all the difference. When you love yourself sufficiently to stand firmly for yourself, you cease to treat another human being as a lifeline or an escape from loneliness. You start to give out of abundance and not out of lack. Love ceases to be a frantic quest to be saved, and instead becomes an intentional, deliberate act done with awareness, serenity, and the will to craft something real and enduring. You no longer look for someone to fix your brokenness. Rather, you find someone who will walk alongside you while you heal them yourself. The space you feel from others is not a sign of some defect in you. It is the inevitable effect of decades, at times decades, of holding back emotions, of inherited ideas, of hurts you never had room to address. But this is not a curse inscribed on stone. This is an invitation, a call to remake yourself in a way that feels truer, more human, more like your very best self. Perhaps no one ever modeled vulnerability for you. Maybe your childhood was surrounded by silence, by adults who avoided tears, by fathers who equated strength with suppression, by mothers who taught that love should be rationed, measured, controlled. But that was their story. It doesn't have to be yours. You can be the one to break that cycle, the one who decides to talk differently, listen differently, love differently. Genuine connection is when one person first takes the courage to go first. You don't need good words, you just need sincerity. Be the one to remain when it is easier to depart. The one who displays humanity rather than resorting to a mask of control. There will be times when you wonder if it is worth it, when the gravity of old habits drags you back into silence. But in those moments, recall how loneliness masquerading as pride has felt. And you'll know the answer. Yes, it is worth it. Every moment of truth brings you closer to a more whole, more free life. Over time, you will attract people into your orbit who hunger for the same depth. People who are not afraid of talking about pain, fear, or hope. People who don't ask for perfection, only presence. With them, you will find a kind of home, not one constructed of walls and roof, but the kind that resides in the knowledge that your voice, your story, your truth, all have a place. It is a belonging that doesn't need you to perform or align. A belonging that only shows up when you are willing to love and link from a place of truth. And out of that truth, everything shifts. Love is no longer desperate. Listening is no longer driven by the need to repair, and sharing is no longer shadowed by abandonment. You start to understand that relationships founded on truth have more power than any relationship founded on superficial approval. And as that truth becomes profounder within you, something else changes. Compassion for yourself. You cease punishing yourself for past failures, for the silences you once maintained, for the pages you wish had unfolded differently. You start to realize that you were always doing the best you could based on the awareness you possessed. But now, with increased awareness, you can make different choices. Authentic connection doesn't ask you to shapeshift into another person. It asks you to be as you are, not because you are afraid of losing someone, but because you are brave enough to be seen. And that bravery increases the moment you resolve that you don't want to live in emotional isolation. The moment you realize that you do deserve to connect with your inner world and are willing to open the door. The real question is, what are you willing to show of yourself, even if your voice shakes? Because that is where the most profound love starts. Not in control, but in presence. Not in perfection, but in trust. From there, every relationship you touch becomes more honest, more real, more free than you ever thought it could. Connection doesn't require you to become someone different. It requests that you be who you are, not in fear, but in courage. And the more you exercise, the more that courage grows until one day you find you no longer yearn for a home outside of yourself, because you've become one. But then there is a harder, more troubling question. Why does silence discomfort you? Why does solitude with your thoughts outweigh more menacing? Why does something in you shudder when you attempt to sit with who you actually are? What if your story that you've been referring to as your identity, your personality, your values, the image that you guard so preciously, is simply a performance, a tale born of fear, expectation, and survival? Carl Jung once remarked, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." But waking up isn't simple. It isn't poetic. It is unflinching. It is dizzying. It is frightening. Because looking inward doesn't mean polishing yourself up for approval. It means self-confrontation. It means abandoning the version of yourself you've performed just to be accepted, just to survive. It means facing the mirror without filters, without excuses, without masks. It is about confessing to yourself what you really want. taking ownership of the fears you've hidden, meeting the truths you've evaded. You know, the times I am referring to, those still nights in the dark when the world sleeps, and your own breathing is the only noise. That weight in your chest, that nagging question that appears, who am I? Most individuals flee from that question. Not because they are unaware of the answer, but because, in the core of their beings, they are. And they realize that once they face it, they can no longer pretend. To acknowledge yourself is to destroy a lifetime of delusions. To confront the pain, the shame, the well-guarded hurts. To see how much fear has shadowed your decisions. But here is the irony. Within that bone, chilling encounter, you discover something more. Power, authenticity, inner peace. Jung referred to this as the path of individuation, the life's work of becoming who you are, the odyssey of taking back your life from others' expectations. It's the shift from performing a role to living a truth, and while it isn't easy, it's the only road that leads to wholeness. So pause for a moment, close your eyes, take a breath. Ask yourself honestly, without lies, without fear. Who am I when no one is watching? That question is where the real journey begins. But why is it so difficult to look inward? Why does it feel easier to scroll endlessly, binge content, stay busy, or repeat the same habits than to sit still and face the stranger inside of you? Carl Jung once said, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And maybe that's what truly frightens us, not the unknown, but the familiar shadows we've buried. To see who you are means facing your darkness. And most of us spend a lifetime running from that encounter. Not because we're weak, but because we're human. From childhood, we were taught to hide the parts of ourselves that seemed ugly. We were told vulnerability could cost us love, respect, belonging. So we learned to wear masks, to build personas that would help us survive. We laughed at the right moments, hid our tears in silence, played the part expected of us. But over time, something within us begins to protest. Not always loudly, but insistently, in the shower. At dawn, in the pause between breaths, a whisper rises. Something isn't being felt. Something isn't being lived. Why are we so afraid of seeing ourselves? Because we know it will change everything. We fear losing control. We fear losing people we love. We fear uncovering desires that don't fit neatly into the moral boxes we were handed. We fear admitting how often we've sabotaged our own happiness. And most of all, we fear discovering that we are not our masks. But what happens if you take them off? If you drop the strong mask, what remains? If you stop pretending you're always calm, who are you really? If you release the forced smile, what expression would appear? These questions cut deep. They slice through illusions we've clung to. And yes, they hurt. That's why most people keep pretending. Because pretending feels safer, more familiar, socially acceptable. But the cost of pretending is your life. It robs you of your soul's connection. It breeds a quiet emptiness that nobody else can see, but you can feel it consuming you, Jung warned. Individuation is not for the faint of heart. It requires courage. Courage to stare into your fears without flinching. Courage to admit you are not only made of light but shadow too. Courage to step beyond the expectations of family, culture, and religion. Courage to disappoint those who only loved the version of you that played by their rules. And yes, even the courage to disappoint the version of yourself you built as armor. To see yourself doesn't mean destroying who you've been. It means integration. It means gathering every fragment. The joy, the rage, the fear, the longing, the pain, and recognizing that all of it is you. It means ending the war within. Because the fear of meeting your true self is really the fear of truly living. And real living is never comfortable. It demands you let go of people who can't meet you at your truth. It asks you to say no, to speak your real feelings, to face desires you were told were wrong. It asks you to admit you're not perfect, not always consistent, and still, you are learning. So if you really want to know who you are, get ready to take down all that you thought made you. Under the masks is nothing to be ashamed of. Only your life, your truth, waiting for you. Prepare yourself to challenge every iteration of yourself you constructed, just to be accepted. Prepare yourself to lose control, Because control has always been an illusion. You've known it deep inside all along, and yet something within is still calling you to cease from running, calling you to look at yourself, calling you to live. You sense it, that quiet voice deep inside. That is where you are. That is why you are still here. Because in spite of fear, there is a larger need to finally know who you truly are. But nobody can tell you the answer. Not me, not Jung, not anybody. Only you can find it out. You have to be brave enough to stand in front of the mirror, look into your own eyes, and let yourself feel. To listen to that inner voice you've been silencing for so long. Because in that delicate room, where need crashes into fear, truth starts to emerge. And don't you dare believe anything less. This is just the start. Deep down is what you've buried. The part you hope nobody ever sees. The part even you tried to deny. Jung called it the shadow. And the shadow isn't just bad. It is everything you've rejected, hidden, or repressed. Your anger, your envy, your jealousy, your ambition, your fear of failure, your hunger for love, even your creativity smothered to please others, your spontaneity strangled by expectation, your sexuality shrouded in shame. All this is your shadow, and it has power. It doesn't disappear just because you are ignoring it. It conceals itself. It seeps into your decisions, your responses, your interactions. You feel like you are the boss until someone says something to hurt you. And then you blow up, or you withdraw and leave. Then you are left questioning, why did I do that? Why do I continue to make the same errors? Why am I so terrified of being perceived as who I truly am? It is because your shadow is behind the wheel. Jung cautioned. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow also shows itself in judgment. When you find yourself critically attacking someone, when someone else's behavior unnerves you more than it should, that is usually your disowned self looking back at you. The shadow appears in dreams too. In the odd, disquieting, recurring characters that invade your nights. Not coincidental invitations. Messages from your unconscious warnings, guides. But all too often, we will not listen. We will not pay attention to the discomfort. We distract ourselves rather than listening. But the shadow doesn't go away. Each time you try to deny it, it becomes more powerful. It nurtures your anxiety. It undermines your relationships. It keeps you isolated from others and from yourself. That is why Jung wrote that incorporating the shadow is necessary to wholeness. This doesn't involve annihilating your shadow. It doesn't involve punishing yourself for being dark. Integration involves acceptance. It involves seeing your anger may be where your power is. Your fear may show you are sensitive. Your desires could be the spark of creativity. Your vulnerability may be the connecting bridge that ties you to people. When you accept your shadow, it ceases to run you. You cease to blow your top without realizing why. You cease to recycle. You start living with consciousness, with wholeness. It is not pleasant. Gazing into the darkness within yourself never is. Acknowledging that you also envious are, that you too judge, that you too deceive yourself. It hurts, but it frees. For the first time, you look at yourself whole. No excuses, no filters, no masks. You understand, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be just light, because the shadow is also a part of you. And the more you embrace it, the more you become whole. Jung once wrote, I'd rather be whole than good. Wholeness is to welcome both your light and your shadow. It is to end the war within. It is to live without fear of self. That is freedom. The shadow will never go away, but you can learn to coexist with it, to speak to it, to hear its voice without being driven by it. And when you do, you cease to respond blindly. You learn to choose consciously. So ask yourself, what am I afraid of inside me? What in myself do I deny? What truths am I not willing to confess? And when the answers emerge, listen. Don't flee. Don't criticize. Only listen, because what you've been hiding all along isn't your weakness. It is part of your strength, part of your beauty, part of your truth. That is what the shadow is, and it informs your life until the day you finally look at it in the eye and tell it, I see you, I accept you. Let's walk together. That is the day you start to feel really free.